Hello everyone, it's Michael Barletta with a tropical update, July 23rd, about 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We're looking at three areas of interest. We have Tropical Storm Gonzalo, Tropical Depression 8, and a tropical wave that is currently coming off of Africa. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Here's Tropical Storm Gonzalo. The satellite presentation on it is not great. Looked a lot better yesterday. We're getting a little bit of a convection flare-up, which is just those bright colors that you see. The storm is very asymmetrical, does not look that good. The intensity has dropped throughout the day today. However, the National Hurricane Center does still expect this to become a hurricane. The real problem has been some dry air, some African dust to the north and to the west, and that has intruded on the storm's core. It was looking very good yesterday on microwave imagery. You were able to see there was a core, but it wasn't fully closed off, and before it had the chance to fully close off, that African dust was able to get entangled in the core, and it really kind of ravaged the system overnight and into the day today. Now we're having a little bit of a resurgence of that strong convection, those negative 80 degrees Celsius cloud tops, which is a sign that the storm may not be on its last leg, but we're definitely going to have to monitor this throughout the next couple days as it moves towards the Lesser Antilles. Now, the current storm track, this was just updated. The 5 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center has Tropical Storm Gonzalo strengthening to a hurricane by 2 a.m. Saturday and making landfall or getting close to making landfall to some of the islands of the Lesser Antilles. There's currently a hurricane watch for some of the islands, Barbados and further west, and tropical storm watches further to the south. Now, if we do see a hurricane develop out of this, which the chances are definitely lowering for that, expect the storm to take the northern envelope of the current cone track, as the models that strengthen this storm to a hurricane, Category 1 or Category 2, like to tread on that northern envelope. So the strength is directly going to be correlated to the track, most likely. The current spaghetti models, really good agreement on exactly where the storm is going, just passing south of Barbados and hitting some of the other islands of the Lesser Antilles. And after that, have it moving into the central and western Caribbean. Don't really know exactly what's going to happen. That's about 5-6 days away at this point, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Never want to see a tropical disturbance in the southern Caribbean headed west towards the Gulf of Mexico. Now for these same spaghetti models, here are the current intensity forecasts for them. Most of them now keep Gonzalo as a tropical storm. The official forecast just barely gets it to a Category 1 hurricane, but some models do get it as a moderately strength Category 1 hurricane, even a couple into Category 2. So it's definitely something we're going to have to watch, especially as this enters the Caribbean and gets close to the Gulf of Mexico. Now the next storm that we're talking about, much better satellite presentation, right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. This is Tropical Depression 8. It was just dubbed a tropical depression today, I believe, and it already has a beautiful satellite presentation. We were worried a little bit yesterday that this one was kind of dying off. There wasn't a whole lot of convection, not a whole lot of clouds, but man, today it really rebounded. A lot of convection, very nice swirl, kind of has that buzzsaw look, and that's what's scary about this in the Gulf of Mexico. This has a really good look. And even though we aren't a hurricane or a tropical storm yet, this has a really impressive look for just being a tropical depression. I expect this to have the potential to overperform a little bit. Looking at the storm track, if this storm were to be named, which is what we expect, this would be Tropical Storm Hanna, and it would be a record breaker for the fastest we've ever gotten to 8 storms before. The current intensity forecast only brings it to a tropical storm, and tropical storm warnings have been issued along the Texas coast because of this reason. However, I suspect in the coming days we may see an upgrade to a possible hurricane, especially right before landfall. There's just not a lot of shear out there, not a lot of dry air. From here on out, there is not a lot. There's really nothing to stop this storm from intensifying besides time. So most of the models do keep this as a tropical storm. However, a few of them do get this up to hurricane strength, and I am leaning towards those being right because there's just not a lot in the way to really slow this one down besides time. Once this starts to really get organized, which it looks as though it has, there's really not going to be much stopping this. And although intensification at first may be slow, once we really develop a strong core, which is possible throughout the next couple days, it's going to be very, very difficult to put a cap on this one and say that it's just going to be a tropical storm. This is the HMON model for Tropical Depression 8 right before landfall in Texas, and as you can see, it does develop this storm into a hurricane right before landfall. This model believes there's a period of rapid intensification possible right before landfall, which is honestly what I'm believing. The water temperatures are warm enough, not a whole lot of shear out there. Gets it down to 976. I think this is a very good forecast for right now. I agree with the National Hurricane Center going for only tropical storm. There's not a whole lot of support for a potential hurricane, but man, it just has that look on the satellite, and models are only so good. That's why we have the human element, and that looks really good on the satellite. That compiled with the fact that there are some models out there that do get this to hurricane strength definitely leads me to believe that this is going to be a hurricane at landfall, or have the potential to become a hurricane right before landfall. Now the models also pretty much in general agreement for a track. Take it right into southern Texas. They're a little bit off on the exact point of where that will happen, but the majority of models are right around the same area, a couple further north, but the track is pretty much set in stone here. Now the Adt technique, which is just a way for satellites to measure how strong tropical cyclones are, showing a number of 2.8 for the T value, which basically means that this is already a moderately strength tropical storm, showing pressures of already 999 millibars with max winds of 41 knots, which puts this well in the category of tropical storm, and that's why I expect this to definitely be upgraded tonight to a tropical storm Hanna. A little later in the day, in a few hours, we have a recon plane being sent into the storm to confirm these numbers and see exactly what's going on in the storm, seeing how close this satellite is to really being correct. But in my opinion, I believe this is going to end up being pretty close. We may even see some strengthening before that plane gets in there. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on what this says. The last thing I want to talk about really quickly, really strong wave coming off Africa right now. The National Hurricane Center giving it a 20% chance of development over the next 5 days, around the same spot that Gonzalo formed. The models have been really keen on developing this one and moving it further west, especially towards the United States, so it's something we are 100% going to have to keep an eye on. The models like this one a lot more than they did Gonzalo. Now this is the EPS, the European ensembles. In the blue we see Gonzalo, and the models kind of died out in the Central and Western Caribbean. In the red, we have the possible I-named storm, which would be the 9th named storm, and you could see that the models are very keen on developing this one and strengthening it as it gets closer. Most of them take a track north of the Caribbean and Puerto Rico and Haiti. That is definitely something we are going to have to watch out for, especially as this wave begins to really develop within the next 3-4 days, in my opinion. There's a really strong signal here, and even though we're pretty far out, there is some threat that needs to be taken seriously all along the East Coast. Make sure you know what you're doing with hurricane plans if there ever was a hurricane. Once again, not saying that that's a guarantee or that this wave will even develop, but the models have been really keen on this one. So that's all I have for you guys today. If you made it this far in the video, you like the content, make sure to please like and subscribe, and make sure to follow me on Twitter at MikeBWeather and on Facebook also at MikeBWeather, where I provide constant updates there. Videos I could only do so often, but there I do constant updates on everything, all 3 of these waves, Gonzalo, Hanna, and the next possible tropical wave. You guys stay safe out there. Have a good one.